In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. The Quran reminds us, say, are those who know equal to those who do not know? Knowledge raises the believer.
Avicenna, known in the Latin West as Avicenna and in the Islamic world as Ibn Sina, Abu Ali al-Hussein Ibn Abi Allah Ibn Sina, 980 to 1037 CE, remains one of the most influential intellectual figures in human history, a towering polymath whose work reshaped medicine, philosophy, science, and theology for centuries. Born in the village of Avicenna near Bokhara during the height of the Islamic Golden Age, Avicenna grew up in a vibrant intellectual environment shaped by Persian culture, Islamic scholarship, and Greek philosophy. His father, a government official with philosophical interests, ensured that his son was exposed early to scholars and debates. By the age of 10, Avicenna had memorized the Quran and mastered Arabic literature, while also studying logic, mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. His extraordinary intelligence allowed him to surpass his teachers quickly, and his encounter with Aristotle marked a turning point in his life. Although he initially struggled with Aristotle's metaphysics, repeatedly reading it without success, a commentary by Al-Farabi finally revealed its meaning to him, inspiring Avicenna to devote his life to philosophy and the pursuit of knowledge. At 16, he turned to medicine and advanced so rapidly that he soon became a renowned physician. His successful treatment of Samanid ruler Ibn Mansur earned him access to the Royal Library of Bokhara, one of the greatest collections of manuscripts in the Islamic world, where he absorbed the accumulated knowledge of Greek, Persian, and Indian traditions. This period shaped him into a thinker capable not only of mastering earlier learning, but of reorganizing and transforming it into a coherent intellectual system. Political upheaval soon ended the stability, and the collapse of the Samanid dynasty forced Avicenna into a restless life of travel, court service, and danger. Over the following decades, he moved through cities such as Gurganj, Ray, Hamadan, and Isfahan, serving as a court physician, advisor, and sometimes vizier, roles that brought both patronage and peril. He was imprisoned, forced into hiding, and entangled in political rivalries. Yet even under these harsh conditions, he continued to write with astonishing productivity, often composing major works from memory. His most famous contribution, the Canon of Medicine al-Canon fi al-Tib, became one of the most influential medical texts ever written. Organized into 5 books, it systematized medical knowledge by combining theory with clinical observation, covering general medical principles, pharmacology, organ-specific diseases, systemic illnesses, and compound remedies. Avicenna emphasized careful diagnosis, experimentation, hygiene, and the balance between physical and psychological health, recognizing the contagious nature of certain diseases, the importance of quarantine and environmental influences on illness. His descriptions of conditions such as diabetes, tuberculosis, meningitis, and mental disorders displayed remarkable accuracy. Translated into Latin in the 12th century, the canon dominated medical education in Europe for over 600 years and remained a foundational text until the modern era. Beyond medicine, Avicenna's philosophical system stands as one of the most sophisticated ever developed, centered on his revolutionary distinction between essence, what a thing is, and existence, that a thing is. He argued that all beings in the universe are contingent and depend on a cause, except for one necessary existent that exists by its own nature, which he identified with God. This metaphysical framework profoundly influenced Islamic philosophy and later Christian scholasticism, shaping the thought of figures such as Al-Ghazali, Suhrawardi, Mullah Sadra, and Thomas Aquinas. Among Avicenna's most famous philosophical contributions is the floating man thought experiment, in which he imagines a person created fully formed, suspended in space without sensory input, yet still aware of his own existence, an argument intended to demonstrate that self-awareness and the soul are independent of the body. This idea anticipated later debates about consciousness and personal identity. In logic, Avicenna refined Aristotelian reasoning and emphasized the importance of induction and experience, arguing that knowledge arises from the cooperation of reason and observation, a view that helped lay intellectual foundations for scientific thinking. His work in psychology treated the study of the soul as a natural science, dividing it into vegetative, animal, and rational faculties, and exploring memory, imagination, emotion, and mental illness, while recognizing the deep connection between mind and body. Despite being a devout Muslim, Avicenna's philosophical views sometimes conflicted with orthodox theology, particularly his ideas about the eternity of a universe and divine knowledge, leading to criticism from theologians such as Al-Ghazali and the incoherence of philosophers. Yet even his critics acknowledged his intellectual brilliance and lasting influence. Avicenna was also an extraordinarily prolific writer, producing more than 250 works across medicine, philosophy, science, theology, and literature, though many have been lost, and he wrote in both Arabic and Persian, helping to establish Persian as a language of scientific and philosophical discourse. His later years were marked by declining health, likely due to exhaustion and overwork, but he continued to teach and write until his death in 1037 CE in Hamadan at the age of 57, facing death with philosophical calm and spiritual preparation. Avicenna's legacy endures as one of the greatest bridges between civilizations. In the Islamic world, he is remembered as Al-Sheikh Ali's, the master and leader, while in Europe, he was revered as the supreme medical authority of the Middle Ages. His ideas cross cultural, linguistic, and religious boundaries, shaping global intellectual history for centuries. And today, Avicenna remains a powerful symbol of what human reason can achieve when knowledge, discipline, and cross-cultural exchange come together in pursuit of truth.
He was a boy of Bukhara, born in the year 980, in the lands we now call Uzbekistan. His father was a respected official, his home filled with scholars and debates, and his environment rich with culture and ideas. But what set him apart was not his birth. It was his mind. By the age of 10, Ibn Sina had memorized the Quran. By the time most children still struggled with basics, he was already mastering logic, mathematics, and philosophy. His teachers marveled at him, and soon the boy outgrew his masters. Books became his closest companions. If he did not understand a page, he would stay awake through the night until the meaning unlocked itself. Yet it was medicine that captured his heart. He once said, "Medicine is not difficult like mathematics or metaphysics. It is a science that can be quickly mastered." But his mastery was anything but ordinary. At just 16, he was already a practicing physician. Patients came to him with fevers, wounds, and unknown diseases, and he treated them with a precision that astounded older doctors. Then came the moment that changed his life. The ruler of Bukhara fell gravely ill. Physicians from across the land tried and failed. The boy was summoned, still a teenager, yet filled with confidence. He examined the emir, prescribed his treatment, and within days the ruler recovered. Word spread like fire. A young genius had saved a king in gratitude. The emir opened to him the royal library, an unimaginable treasure of books collected from across the known world. Ancient Greek manuscripts, Persian wisdom, Indian medical texts, all were now in Ibn Sina's hands. He devoured them, studying day and night, building knowledge upon knowledge. In that library, he did not simply read, he transformed. This was the soil in which the Canon of Medicine would later grow, a book that would become the most famous medical encyclopedia in history. But at this stage, Ibn Sina was still rising, still gathering the tools he would use to carve his name into the story of mankind. And so we leave him here, a young physician newly celebrated, his mind sharper than ever, standing at the door of destiny. For the world does not yet know that this boy from Bukhara will one day write a book studied in Europe for 600 years, a book that would make him one of the greatest physicians who ever lived. But how did he build that book? What secrets did he record? And why did the entire world, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, cling to his knowledge for centuries? The answer lies in the next chapter of his journey. Ibn Sina, the physician of kings. The young genius of Bukhara had already astonished his city. By curing the ruler when no other physician could, Ibn Sina had earned access to the royal library, a treasure chest of wisdom from Greece, Persia, and India. inside its walls. He studied day and night, mastering subjects that others spent lifetimes struggling to understand. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below on which topic you would like to see in the next video. From the Royal Library, Ibn Sina drew knowledge that would change the world. He read Hippocrates, Galen, Indian texts on Ayurveda, and Islamic writings on medicine. But he did more than copy. He challenged, corrected, and built upon them. Medicine to him was not only about treating the body, but about balancing the soul, the mind, and the natural order. Soon, rulers across the Muslim world sought his skills. He became the physician of kings, treating nobles and commoners alike with methods that combined observation, diagnosis, and treatment in ways unseen before. He believed medicine should be based on evidence and reason, not superstition. If a disease spread, he studied its patterns. If a patient suffered, he searched for causes, not only cures. It was during these years that Ibn Sina began writing his greatest work, the Canon of Medicine. In this monumental book, he organized centuries of medical knowledge into one clear system. He explained the principles of health, the causes of disease, and the properties of hundreds of drugs and remedies. He described contagious diseases, outlined surgical methods, and insisted on hygiene and prevention as keys to well-being. His writing was so precise, so comprehensive, that for 600 years it remained the standard medical textbook in both the Muslim world and Europe. Imagine a scholar in Paris, centuries later, studying a book written in Bukhara. Imagine a doctor in Cairo prescribing a treatment from its pages. Imagine a university in Italy teaching from it for generations. All of them held in their hands the words of Ibn Sina. But his fame brought challenges too. He lived in a time of political turmoil, with wars and shifting powers. He often traveled from one court to another, serving rulers, debating scholars, and writing wherever he could find peace. Yet through all this, his pen never rested. By the end of his life, he had written over 200 works on subjects as wide as astronomy, psychology, logic, and philosophy. Still, his crown jewel remained the Canon of Medicine, the book that made him not only a physician of kings, but a physician of humanity. But Ibn Sina was more than a doctor. He was also a philosopher, a thinker who wrestled with the deepest questions of the soul, the intellect, and the purpose of life. And in the next part of his story, we will see how this Muslim genius went beyond medicine, shaping philosophy and science for centuries to come. The story of Ibn Sina does not end with medicine. His genius could not be contained by one field. Just as he healed bodies, he sought to heal minds. Just as he diagnosed illnesses, he probed the mysteries of the soul. He became not only a physician of kings, but also a philosopher of humanity. A man whose questions shook the halls of scholarship and whose answers shaped centuries of thought. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments which story you would like us to cover next. Ibn Sina lived in a world of turmoil. The Persian lands of his time were fragmented by warring dynasties. He often found himself moving from court to court, serving rulers as their physician, advisor, and scholar. Yet, wherever he went, his pen followed. If he was not treating the sick, he was writing. If he was not writing, he was debating. His life was restless, but his knowledge grew deeper with every step. By the end of his journey, Ibn Sina had authored more than 200 works. Only about half survive today, but even those are enough to prove his vast reach. His writings covered logic, philosophy, astronomy, physics, mathematics, poetry, psychology, and even theology. He was not a man of one discipline. He was a universe of thought contained in one soul. His philosophical works made him one of the most influential thinkers in both the Muslim world and the West. Building on the works of Aristotle and Plato, he blended Greek philosophy with Islamic revelation. He argued about the nature of the soul, the existence of God, and the relationship between reason and faith. For him, the human intellect was a gift from Allah, a light that could guide one to truth. But intellect alone was not enough. Revelation, he believed, was the final and perfect source of guidance. One of his most famous contributions was his argument for the existence of God. He explained that everything in this world is possible. It could exist or not exist. But if everything were only possible, then nothing would necessarily exist. Therefore, there must be one being who is not possible but necessary, one being whose existence depends on no other. This, Ibn Sina said, is Allah, the necessary existent. His argument would later echo through centuries of Islamic theology and even into European philosophy. But Ibn Sina was not content with abstract thought alone. He applied his reasoning to psychology and the human mind. He studied emotions, dreams, and memory. He described how the senses transmit information to the brain, how imagination and reasoning shape thoughts, and how the soul influences the body. Many consider him the father of early psychology. He also wrote on physics and natural sciences. Long before modern experiments, he studied motion, force, and the properties of light. He questioned Aristotle's theories and offered his own insights, some of which foreshadowed discoveries made hundreds of years later in Europe. His works influenced not only Muslim scientists, but also Christian scholars such as Thomas Aquinas, who studied his ideas closely. Ibn Sina's life was not easy. His fame attracted envy, and his association with rulers often brought him into political intrigue. At times, he was imprisoned. At times, he lived in hiding. Yet even in prison, he continued to write, producing some of his most important works under the harshest conditions. Knowledge was his freedom, and writing was his refuge. What made Ibn Sina truly remarkable was his balance. He did not see a divide between science and faith, between medicine and philosophy, between body and soul. To him, all knowledge flowed from the same source, Allah, the creator of all things. To study the universe was to read the signs of God. To heal the body was to honor the trust of life given by God. To seek truth was to draw closer to God. Centuries later, his books would be translated into Latin and studied across Europe. His philosophy shaped debates in medieval universities. His medical writings dominated Europe's schools of medicine until the 17th century. His influence crossed borders, languages, and religions. And yet, behind all this, he remained a man of faith. He prayed, he reflected. He sought to reconcile reason with revelation. He once said, "The world is divided into men who seek and men who turn away. I choose to seek." The legacy of Ibn Sina is not just in the pages of his books. It is in the spirit of inquiry, the courage to ask, the patience to search, and the humility to know that all knowledge belongs to Allah. He reminds us that a Muslim does not fear knowledge, but embraces it, shapes it, and uses it to serve humanity. But how did his life end? After so much study, so many writings, and so many journeys, what was the closing chapter of this extraordinary man? And how did the world remember him after his passing? That is the story of the final chapter of Ibn Sina's life, his legacy, his death, and the lessons he left behind for us all. Every life, no matter how great, must one day end. Ibn Sina, Avicenna, the genius who healed kings, who wrote books that shaped centuries, who searched endlessly for truth, was no exception. Yet his ending, like his life, carried lessons for all who came after him. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments which story you would like us to cover next. As Ibn Sina entered his final years, his health began to decline. The very physician who had treated countless others now faced illness within himself. Some say it was a long digestive sickness. Others describe complications that slowly weakened his body. Yet even as his strength faded, his pen continued. He wrote until his hand could no longer hold ink, driven by the same passion for knowledge that had guided him since childhood. He passed away in 1037 at the age of 57 in the city of Hamadan in Persia. His body was laid to rest there, and to this day, visitors come to honor the man who gave the world so much. He left no children, no dynasty of blood, but he left a dynasty of ideas, writings, and wisdom that outlived empires. After his death, his work spread farther than he could have imagined. In the Muslim world, the Canon of Medicine continued to be studied for centuries. It shaped hospitals, guided physicians, and influenced the training of new doctors. In Europe, translations of his works became standard textbooks in universities. For 600 years, from Italy to France to Spain, students memorized his words, dissected his theories, and practiced medicine with his guidance. His book was used longer than almost any other medical text in history. But Ibn Sina's legacy did not stop at medicine. His philosophy influenced Islamic scholars like al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd, and Christian thinkers like Thomas Aquinas. His arguments for the existence of God, his studies of the soul, his insights into psychology, and the nature of knowledge, all became part of the intellectual foundation of both the Islamic Golden Age and the European Renaissance. His influence crossed borders, languages, and faiths. Yet behind the titles and honors, Ibn Sina remained what he had always been, a seeker, a man who believed that knowledge was an amana, a trust from Allah. He once said that the world is divided into two kinds of people, those who seek and those who turn away. He chose to seek. His entire life was proof of the Prophet's saying, "When a person dies, his deeds come to an end except for 3 ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, or a righteous child who prays for him." Ibn Sina's beneficial knowledge continues to live on, nearly 1,000 years after his passing. His story is not simply about medicine or philosophy. It is about the hunger to know, the courage to ask, and the humility to recognize that all knowledge belongs to Allah. He showed the world that a Muslim does not fear knowledge but embraces it, shapes it, and uses it to serve humanity. Today, as we live in an age of technology, algorithms, and science, the legacy of Ibn Sina whispers to us, knowledge without faith is incomplete, and faith without knowledge leaves us blind. True greatness lies where the two meet, and so we remember him, Ibn Sina, the Muslim genius of medicine, the philosopher of the soul, the seeker of truth, a man who left the world with more than he took from it, and whose story continues to inspire those who walk the path of knowledge today.